Welcome back to Basic Bananas Radio, where we share tried and tested ways to grow your brand and get more customers. Everything from the latest in marketing and branding, right through to growing your team and creating an irresistible culture.
Hi, and welcome back. I am so excited to share with you a conversation I had with Ngahina Richards, one of our brilliant members who is about to publish her book, Come to Your Senses. Brilliant book about how we can use our senses in our businesses and also in our personal lives. And the insights that she's sharing in this episode are fascinating. So let's jump straight in. Hi, Ngahina. I'm so excited to have you here on the show today.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this chat because you've got a new book coming out. You've been one of our beautiful Clever Bunch members, and I've been following you along on this journey of writing this book, Come to Your Senses. And you've poured so much into this work. And really, it's what's coming out is incredible, helpful, and insightful. And we here on Basic Bananas Radio, we're lucky enough to get a little sneak peek of what you're publishing. So maybe before we get into the content of the book and some key insights, can you share a little bit about you, your journey? How did you get to where you are now?
Sure. I have a background in health science, so the majority of my working life has been in and around the pharmaceutical industry for more years than I care to mention, actually. It's given me a really broad experience in terms of operational, commercial roles, strategic positions in leadership, as well as people management. But I got to a point, like many people can relate to, where I was going through this cycle of wired, tired, somewhat detached. And it was really important for me to get out of that. I just, as people would say, I want to, live, not just exist. So with my background, it was really important that I found practical and evidence-based solutions. So what was interesting as I started digging was that so many of these solutions were based on sensory stimuli of some sort. So let's take the classic massage. Yeah, so well researched now. We're looking at stimulation of touch and pressure, which calms the nervous system, reduces stress hormones, improves bonding hormones. So it makes us feel better. But what really dawned on me is, why are we only focusing on sensory processes when we're already off kilter? We treat them like a remedy to fix us at a moment in time, but our senses are working 24/7. So why are we ignoring the everyday experiences that, in reality, they're most likely contributing to us feeling, what I guess a bit detached or on edge in the first place? So I couldn't understand why this wasn't important to us. But the more I dug into it to understand how our senses work, what that means today, the more I understood why we don't think this way. The information is so fragmented. It sits in different subject matter expert areas, with research focusing on different senses that appear in different channels and different levels of communication. So it's overwhelming. So no wonder it's not put together concisely very often, let alone in practical solutions for people to follow as well. And that's what made me decide I'm going to focus on this full time, because this is now beyond helping me. This is valuable to people everywhere. And this applies across personal life, across business environments, and also just, simple, if you like, professional settings as well. That's what led to me developing the concept of total sensory well-being, which now appears in my book, Come to Your Senses. And if I may say, what I do is I break the senses down into manageable areas that people can identify. For example, sight is way too big. What can I address with what I'm looking at to be useful to me, to help shape a mood and a behavior? And again, this is just as applicable to personal as well as professional settings. And a big premise around this is understanding that our senses haven't really shifted in around 50,000 years. So what worked for us in the green jungle can send us a bit haywire in the urban jungle. And this can lead to sensory overstimulation and the less talked about understimulation. And that's what I want to bring to people's awareness. People are doing this, but they're maybe not doing this as effectively as they could because they don't have the full picture. And I certainly see this in commercial environments, and I'm happy to give you some examples around this as well to get people
Yeah.
thinking.
Let's start with the personal environment, because I reckon I don't have the full picture of how to use all my senses to, you know, what you said, to go from wired, tired, and somewhat detached to coming to your
Yes.
senses. I don't even know. You know, you're talking
Yeah.
about sight. All I know is that I'm in front of the computer most of the day, and already I have really bad eyesight. So I know that one. Hearing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What's with
Yeah.
hearing? You know, like I have ear
Yeah.
infections every 5 minutes. Obviously, there's something that I'm missing about that. And set the tasting. So maybe if we can start with the personal well-being first, if you can even maybe share the different senses and something practical that we can all do to come to our senses, and then we can go into the commercial side of things too.
Yeah, sure. So there are many perspectives, but what I will let you know is what really clicked huge light bulbs in my mind is when I dug into environmental psychology, this understanding of how humans, how we survey a space, all comes back to our sense of survival and opportunity, shelter, protection, food, water. Okay. So nothing's changed except, okay, it's not lions in the living room that we're looking at now, but we will still scan our spaces and they still influence us based on four key fundamental ways that a room can make you feel. So we talk about the legibility. How easily can I move through my space to do what I need to do right now? How well is it aligned in terms of being coherent, that everything makes sense to me? Is it too complex, or is it set out in an interesting enough way that I get to do what I want to do in the frame of mind? Now, why I'm saying this is that every room you walk into, whether you're familiar with it or not, your brain is always scanning it. Okay, because you're in there to do something. So you could be in there in your study, or you could be in your living room to relax. But if it is not fit for purpose, your brain is going to be fighting to filter out what doesn't serve you. So if we're looking at, let's take a study in somebody's home as an example. There's a lot of talk about making it clutter-free or simple. The reason for that is the less stimuli your brain has to make sense of, the more you can put your cognitive attention on what you need to do right now. But this doesn't mean it has to be empty, because that might not provide a little bit of stimulation or focus that you want to have to rest your brain as well. Does that, dare I say, does that make sense in what I'm saying?
Perfect sense. So
Yeah.
and I wonder if you could give a practical example and even action. What I'm thinking right now, you know, listening to you, this show, is I could probably go through my office and just make it more simple, but stimulating to me. So I guess my kind of art, you know, for me,
Correct.
candles, books, things that stimulate, but no clutter. Is that a practical thing that people could?
So, yes. So when it comes to your personal sensory profile, I go into this in the book. I won't elaborate so much now, but there are different profiles that will lean towards having more objects in there because that stimulates their brain. And there are others that too much in there is going to be confusing and overwhelming and not allow them to focus. But we can take lots of lessons from how nature affects us in patterns. So coming to your point, if you have a role where you want a lot of creative, dynamic energy, then patterns that have more lines or triangular motions are probably going to be more stimulating to energize that. If you have more contemplative, intellectual type of pursuits, then softer, rounder, or wavy patterns can help calm that mind for that clearer thinking, and they stimulate more alpha waves and theta waves for creativity as well. So even those subtle elements of the shapes and the patterns around you affect you. Again, yeah, straight lines, angular, more dynamic and energetic. That also goes to the colors around you. So people may be familiar with the color wheel. You have what you call the warmer colors, your oranges, your reds, your yellows, and your cooler side, your greens and your blues. And it's been shown through research that the warmer colors, they're more energizing and action orientated. So again, let's say you might have a brainstorming area or a creative space in your office, your professional office. You might want to have some of those colors in there to help with that creative thinking. Or you may be in a more, again, intellectual pursuit, analytics, maybe a library setting, for example, or a research office. You're going to probably be more energized and influenced by the blues and the greens because of the influence they have on your mental clarity and deep thinking. So those are some really practical takeaways, and they're not what people may assume in terms of superficial aesthetics. Because again, what you understand through the research is that what we say we like or we dislike, or, we might say, I don't like the atmosphere here. This all stems from our really fast sensory assessment that's going on. It's the interplay, what I refer to as the interplay of the senses, and how that affects our mood and our cognitive thinking. That's what's at play here. So aesthetics aren't the superficial thing we think about because of the way it may be marketed today in terms of interior design. Is absolutely rooted in terms of our cognitive behavior and our mood. So it's important. Don't overlook it and think it's not. If that, yeah.
Oh, I just got a coughing fit.
Sure.
We
This
talked
also
about
I can carry on because this also
please
translates.
do.
This also translates into the layout of a space. So once again, if you're trying on a personal level to make your space a little bit more interesting, it might be a living room now that we're in, and we want to bring some calm but interesting aspect. So let's look at the classic mantelpiece and what people might put on a mantelpiece, right? When we as humans, we see an odd number of things, that draws our attention because it's a little bit more complex for our brain to look at. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. So if we think of 3s and 5s, we try and we make sense of it. Our brain just has to do that, walks into a space, it assesses, it filters, it blocks out, right? So if you want a super calming space, like in a bedroom, you might go for more symmetrical view and even number of objects, because that's super fast and easy for the brain to analyze and work out. Now you can start to think how this might translate also into commercial settings as well, and the types of moods and behaviors we try and instill on clients and customers.
So fascinating, and I would love to go there. And it just made me think that for the action for everyone here is to walk through your spaces, and especially, let's say, your office, and see what can be adjusted. And one thing that I do often when I'm in writing mode, so when I'm working on let's say on my next book, or I'm writing something for one of the publications, I often put books on my desk. Like right now, I was writing this morning, and I actually have a book that is called The Spiritual Poems of Rumi on my desk right now, because it almost puts me into this state of contemplation that you're mentioning. So I wonder if that's part of it too.
Yeah, absolutely. What you surround yourself by isn't necessarily about drawing your immediate current focus, because you're there to write what you want to write. But absolutely, without a doubt, your brain takes things in. It puts it to the peripheral focus because it's not what your current focus is now, but it absolutely influences your surroundings. So even having things in your space that give your mind rest. Here comes what everybody talks about. Have plants around you. It's because it's being validated again that even viewing aspects of nature, not even being in nature, gives your brain those calm moments to rest and give yourself a cognitive break. So yes, you can use objects in terms of indirect stimulation for what you're doing, but you can take advantage of objects in your space that you can just turn to or glance at, and they will be a cognitive rest moment so that you can come back a bit more energized. That can be abstract forms of nature as well, patterns that I just spoke about. So you could have repeating patterns are really calming. So it's not just what the shape of the pattern is, but repeating patterns are easy for the brain and they're restful. So you think of abstract images of nature could be, goodness, it could be in the clothes you're wearing. It could be in a rug on the floor that acts as either a stimulation or a rest point as well. Definitely, yes.
Fascinating. How can we apply this now in our businesses?
I'll give you some examples that people might think is rather simplistic and easy, but there's more to it. And the more you understand, the better. Do you like supermarket music?
I don't pay super attention. You know what? The other day they did play Jupiter, that song.
Yep, yep.
Who is it by again? And I love that song. So it depends. I guess I only pay attention when there's a song that really grasps my attention.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a really interesting point. So with that, when you notice the music in the first place at the supermarket, it's actually a bit of a mistake on their part, right? It is going to affect us regardless. But as soon as you're paying attention to it, whether you like it or dislike it, is shifting your behavior. So as soon as that is your primary focus, you're not on your shopping list, you're not looking at the shelf. You will soon be able to block it again and get back to what you're doing. But the fact, if you don't like it, you're likely to move through that process faster because it's affected the emotional core of your brain, your limbic system, subtly, right? If you like it, maybe you might linger in the store environment a bit longer, which is great. But the point is not to overload you cognitively. It's busy enough in there, right? The selection, the choices. What they've also found through research, though, is that even the beats per minute, when you're not even aware of the music, will shift your behavior and your actions. So faster music, like around 90 beats per minute, that makes us move faster through the store and we buy less than when the beats per minute are around 70 beats per minute, closer to our heart rate, so we're more comfortable. Customers will stay in the supermarket longer and they put more in their shopping trolley. So something as subtle as that or obvious as that can either distract you and literally change the pace and your shopping behavior. So now think about these stores that are appealing typically to a younger demographic, and they want the music loud so it's cool and the kids come in, if you like, and they spend more time in the store, but it's cognitively overwhelming. So the ability of those customers to select and make choices is reduced. So it's likely those stores are missing out on earning as much as they could if the music was still there, but not as invasive. You know that expression, I can't even hear myself think. Right? It's literal, right? It's interfering with that process
Yeah.
of shopping. So that's just some very simple examples of the right intention to shift the mood and behavior. But if you overdo it, or it's too much in the focus, then it can actually go against what you're trying to achieve with your customer base there. So I think that's just something people should be aware of.
Yeah, so music is one thing, and I'm just thinking for us here at Basic Bananas, we run a lot of events, and we're actually, I just had a meeting with my business partners about we're doing more in-person events because human connection really is so potent, and people need more human connection. So I'm thinking for an event where people come together and you want them to feel confident and connected. How do you choose the music? Is it based on how you think first, hey, how do I want them to feel? And then I pick
Absolutely.
that
Yes.
flavor, or how
Yeah.
would you suggest
Yeah.
somebody picks the right music?
Yeah. I go a lot into detail in this in the book. So there are aspects of music that are so influential on our emotional core because the way our emotional center is the limbic system. So that holds the amygdala with our instant responses. We just can't help it. It's instinctive, and it's linked to memory as well. So it's very emotive. Music is very, very emotive. So it depends what you or this, whatever the event is, what is your goal with your customer and client base? Are you there to calm them and make them feel good and build their confidence? Are you there to motivate and stimulate them? This will go into your factors about the beats per minute that you choose and the melodic tone, or if you're looking for more in simple terms, jarring or juxtaposition notes that get them fired up, right? Because it literally affects their physiology as well. Their heart rates are affected, their brain waves are affected. So you'll get more higher level beta, stronger beta waves happening as well when you play more faster, energetic music. This is why music is upbeat music is really strong in gyms, because it affects you physically in your workout. You join in, you can't help it. So it's called entrainment. It's the process of entrainment. It's just how we're wired. It served us for survival, and it still works the same way today. And I think a great example of this in business is spas are amazing, right? They look at the interplay of the senses as soon as you walk in the door. The lighting. They want their clients, their customers to be calm, relaxed, and feel recharged. So the lighting is going to go to those warmer tones, the more yellow light of the spectrum. Sound is generally a soundscape, not voices, because voices we start to engage with too strongly. So they'll go for those very slow, melodic sound vibes, if you like. And the settings, they have their items around them spaced out very calmly, very orderly. So it's simple and easy for the brain to work out what's going on. And the more you move into the treatment areas, it gets even darker and closer, and the aromas start to become more evident as well. So they are masters at the interplay of the senses. And in that case, they're going for that calming element. So even when you're thinking about putting on an event, the timing of the music, as you asked me at the start, is really important, because yes, at the beginning, it's a great way to get people G'd up. For example, it's typical. I mean, certainly in my background at national conferences, you would be pumping the music up to get people really positive at the start. But think about when you might use sound or even motivational interruptions in a group setting as well. Because even if you're looking at facilitating, if I can just use that as an example that's popped into my mind, you want people to go into breakout groups and you want them to work together or even work alone on something that you've just been discussing. Think very carefully about interjecting again with pearls of wisdom that are going to help them. Because what you're doing, yes, you think, oh, this is important and I can really help them, but you're breaking their focus. You're actually breaking their ability to think and come together with ideas to present back. So this is a mistake that I see quite a lot in facilitation groups as well. So
it makes sense. Music, I definitely use music even personally in my office to, there's usually a silence, but sometimes when I need to go down thinking like a rabbit hole of thoughts, I definitely will put on music that has really slow beats. What about scents? You talked a little bit about spas,
yes,
how they use scents. What can we learn from
yeah, it's a really interesting one. You see it used more and more in different settings in client and customer environments, which is good. And sometimes sometimes it's not used well. So what the research really points to is really interesting, that overall, the simpler the scent that you use, the better the outcome. And I'll give you some examples, two juxtapositions. This business, by the way, that I'm going to speak about next is not very politically correct, but it's more the outcome, the effect that's important. Casinos, another group that heavily invest in research on sensory stimulation, just like spas, but the other end of the scale. So one research, for instance, looked at the effect of how long gamblers stayed at a table. So they used a simple floral scent, a more complex scent, and no scent. And the simple floral scent resulted in gamblers staying at the table 50% longer than no scent or a more complex scent. All right, so that's one example. Another example, a homeware store. Okay, so this is more robust, the study. I like this one because it had 3 groups where they tested customer behavior or shopper behavior over several days in 3 different environments. Once again, a single simple scent, blended scents of these are essential oils, and no scent. And the simple scent scenario resulted in customers spending 20% more in store. And the reason that the researchers felt this was happening was that the scent was positive, it was nice, but it wasn't overly complex, because I've got a lot going on in a homeware store. Cognitively, the brain is having to look around. It's got all these different departments and sections. And then within the section, there's a whole heap of choices to think about and consider. So if you overwhelm with a complex, another sensory stimuli like a scent, it can be too much and interfere with the process you're trying to achieve. So using sensory stimuli is really about enhancing an experience and not thinking I've got to throw it all in, because that can be counterproductive. And people who may be a bit skeptical because they have this idea that smells are like, and scents are a bit maybe woo-woo, for example, there's plenty of research to show that especially essential oils, because they have active compounds, they have an effect on brainwaves and behaviors. If we come back to a cognitive perspective, there was a wonderful trial that looked at using, again, essential oils used a couple of hours before going to bed, so diffusing that, versus the same smell but an artificial scent with no active compounds. And how did these people perform in a memory test over a period of months? And the group that had the essential oil showed over a 200% better result.
Wow.
In memory recall. Now, a lot of these trials are very small. And again, with my science background, I go, you can pick holes in them. But what we're seeing here is a trend, certainly, that, well, there's no doubt physiologically smells affect our limbic system, as I said. But the simpler the scent, and it does not have to be overpowering, the more effect you're likely to drive in your environment. So don't think that just because it's nice, it's going to have an effect. That would be my big takeaway. Keep it simple.
And how do you classify simple? I mean, my sensory perception is probably different to yours or somebody else. The things
Correct.
that I like is different to what you like.
So correct. You'll never please 100% of the people. And I discuss this in the book too. We need to be realistic about this. But your best bet, if you like, to have an effect across the board. When I mean keep it simple, keep it to one element of a fragrance. So an orange only or a jasmine only. Don't try and mix too many blends or too many essential oils or different scents together, because that's harder work for the brain to work out what's going on. Believe it or not, but that's what's happening. And keep it subtle. We don't even have to be very aware of it, and certainly not aware of it all the time. It is still affecting us. So think of perfumes and colognes, right? And how we wear them for ourselves, but they influence other people as well. So there's amazing studies even in that area on a personal level. The more overpowering the smell, the more off-putting it is to people. And the subtlety actually is what makes a difference. And I'm sorry to say, the evidence shows it doesn't make you more physically appealing. Even if it smells nice. But what it does do is it can add to a person's perception about your personality, which is really interesting. So I don't need to make you better looking. You already look amazing. But by choosing a subtle, appropriate scent, you could give off an air of sophistication or fun, depending on the aroma that you have chosen. So scent is super, super powerful on a personal level, but also on our behavior and our cognitive thinking.
So powerful. And, we could talk about senses for hours and hours. You've got a book coming out soon. We're going to post a link also in show notes. Anyone can already grab a copy now, pre-order their book on Amazon. It's called Come to Your Senses. We'll link it. Is there anything that, to close off this episode, that we haven't talked about that you really feel like, I really want to share this?
I think, there are quite a few things. But I think on a personal note, given that people listening to this are probably running their own business, and we spoke about, taking in a lot of information and needing to analyze what's going on, I would ask people to think about how often in the day do they not consume information. Okay, because even when we're taking breaks, what are we doing? We might be scrolling, we might be reading, we might be listening to fabulous podcasts. But when do you let your brain breathe? When do you give yourself true independent thought to process everything that's going on? It's in these moments that you find your solutions, your creativity, without any agenda, just free flow thinking. Yeah, I call it listening to the podcast of your mind. Yeah, there's no better subject out there, I think. And people don't do this enough. So what happens when you hit the pillow at night? This is when the brain starts worrying, because it's the only time for many people that they give themselves a chance for their brain to breathe. So I think that's a really important sensory consideration, is just not consuming information, which is everywhere today.
Yeah,
So
great. Yeah, thank you, Ngahina. Really great way to finish. So the call to action, and I'm definitely going to take that on too, is to let your brain breathe. So have stillness without consuming stuff while you're out and about or just sitting at your desk. Let your brain do its thing. Love that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks so much again. Thanks, Ngahina, for coming on, sharing your beautiful insights into how we can come to our senses. I can't wait to read your book, and I definitely recommend for our listeners to check it out. Come to your senses. Thanks again, and I can't wait to see you next time.
Thank you so much.
To get more from Basic Bananas and to learn new ways to grow your business with clever marketing, visit basicbananas.com.